Hey, what's going on, everybody? It looks like we're getting that correction, right? A lot of people were anticipating a continuation, right? But like I said, we got some bearish divergence in here, and this looks a little bit preemptive. So it reminds me of a B wave, but it could be wrong, but I don't think so because this is coming down quite quickly for the degree of this wave, right? So basically, when I turn the lights on, I think I tweeted this out last night. There was actually three ideas, but essentially looking at this as a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? And that would be wave 1. And then we have an A, and this is actually just a B wave, right? So it gave you the impression that this is a wave 1, this is a wave 2, and now we're going up into wave 3. But like I said, just be patient, let it develop. Seems like a lot of people are bullish right now. I've still been expecting some kind of thing where we go up and we flag out, right? I haven't seen that yet. Okay, so this sort of wave kind of gives me the impression that it's some kind of expanded flat. So let's see how that will shape up. So just real quick, the other ideas, and it's still plausible, right? Still plausible, but basically saying that wave 1 isn't complete yet. So 1, 2, right? All of this is wave 3. This is wave 4. And now we're in the middle of wave 5. And basically, obviously this screenshot was taken last night, but it's basically looking like this. So it looks like a 3-wave move. I'm not sure if that's the case now because, right? And that's another thing we talked about too is, let me just go back to the regular chart, is when you have your first wave right here, right, break above the high without getting a pullback, then it gives me that sort of that trappy sensation, right? Like you're gonna get trapped in here, right? It makes you believe that it's gonna go, and that's why it's so important. That's what I've been saying. When you zoom out and look at it from a bigger perspective, right? That's why I don't want this wave to just go like this. A lot of people do, but they're gonna wish that never happened. Why? Because if you don't get a wave 2, then you have nothing to reset your momentum. You have nothing to sort of, reset the price so that you can continue breaking out. So if this thing continues to like pump and pull back like this, it's going to seem a little bit suspicious, right? I'm not saying it can't happen, but then if that happens, we're going to want to see evidence that we can hold above this and then continue, right? Because if we go up, it's going to look like distribution. So that's why when you look at this A, B, C, and then you have a wave 1, you want the wave 1 to be big, but you don't want it to be so big that it breaks above here. Not yet. We want a correction first. And then it's kind of redundant, right? Because you want it to break out. Every Bitcoiner, I would imagine, wants this to break, and I want it to break too, but I don't want it to break until I see some kind of move like that, and then I would be much happier, right? Why? Because, and it doesn't have to look like that. That's just a basic way to explain, right, a wave 2. It could be a running correction, right? And by the way, we might have already had the wave 2, right? This could have been the wave 2 right here. It's a little small. I don't really like it a lot, but if that's a wave 2, we have a 1, 2, right? 3, 4, 5, and this is wave 1, and this is wave 2, and now we have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and now it looks like we're getting another wave, right? Another wave 1, 2, and then we're gonna go. That's possible, right? And if it starts to do that, then it'll look decent. But I don't care for it as much. Why? Because the wave 2 is very shallow. It didn't take that long, right? It doesn't seem like it would be finished. But maybe I'm wrong. So we'll see. And basically, that screenshot was right here. So we have, you can see A, B, C, right? So, last night it was looking good, but then when you come down and you start breaking this low, now it looks very three-wave-ish. So I don't really care about it as much. The other idea was this one here, and then obviously this one here. So, looking at the price right now, what would make me happy is if this was some kind of running flat. And then I could agree that all of this is a wave 2. Because that's what I want to see. I want to see boom, boom, boom. Some kind of move like that. Right? Now, if we come here and we start going sideways in here, it could look like some kind of running flat. So that would be nice to see. So that's really about it. I think people got a little bit too bullish. And, I've been warning, hey, obviously anything's possible, right? And nothing is financial advice. Trump coming out and speaking, right in this B wave here is very suspicious, right? It's a way, it's a trap, right? Now, so if this wave, for example, came up like this, and then it pulled back, and then it went higher, I would feel a little bit differently. But see, this wave came all the way and took the top out with no pullback, which means, right, oftentimes the market makers are targeting liquidity, and they do so by sprinting, right? So they're sprinting there. They're not like resetting it, pulling back, continuing higher. So what we have is this three-wave shape. Okay, and so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then we have A, B, C. So if we get 1, maybe we get 2, we come down and get 3, 4, and then 5, right? And when I put this area right about here, and it's actually a good thing too that we broke the top, because that means the C leg won't be as deep. It could be, but it's usually like, if it's an A, B, and a C, right, you're starting from here. But if you come up all the way here, now you're starting from way up here. So the way down is less, typically, because you stall out momentum. So, a lot of times when you have a big B wave that takes out the top, it could be, obviously it'll be a flat, but we'll see if we get that running flat. So it'll look like this, boom, boom, and then go. And then you can see why it is a flat. Actually, let me do this instead, because, right, if it's like this, you can see this is essentially everything's a flat in here. It's basically you're in a box, so you're basically breaking even, right? It's an even correction. So that's what I'm looking for. We'll see if that continues to develop. So let me actually zoom in to the 1 hour chart. Yeah, and you can see it much clearer on the 1 hour. I mean, look at this. You have a pretty much a big 3-wave shape. And notice how this wave was so bullish looking, right? And that's typical from a trap, a B wave, right? And that's basically exactly what we were saying here. So it's nice to see that. Now, you can say, well, how's that nice? We don't want to pull back. Well, yeah, we do. We do want to pull back. Why? Because let me turn on the 4 hour, and you can see how much bearish divergence we have here. And now bearish divergence, take it with a grain of salt. It could be easily get taken out, but it's something you can see hit 1, 2, 3, 4. You got 4 hits here, and the same thing here, right? You're going up, this is going down. So what needs to happen, right? Now, don't let it fool you. It could be actually revving up, like I said, into a running flat. So if we start to go down, which we are, and we kind of waddle along, kind of go down, maybe we can get this thing to reset down in here, like it did back over here, right? And then we would have hidden bullish divergence, right? Because this is going up, and this is basically flat. It reset the price, right? So yeah, let's see how that plays out. And another reason, again, why we want it to pull back, or at least give me the impression that a wave 2 is there, right, is because we want it. We want that healthy pullback here. So that's pretty much all I can say. Let me put the retracement up. Okay. And we're right now, okay, so that's interesting. We came up and we broke above the 786. So right now we're in between the 702 and the 786. That's still very bullish, right? What I don't want to see is us go back below the 50. If we go back below the 50, it's not going to be, I mean, I did say 60,000 and it's okay. But, since we took this top out right here, we're correcting from a higher point. So I don't really want to see that. So what I would do is put this here and then put this down here. And from this perspective, right, we have this area right here at 63,000, and then the 50 at 61. So if we can hold above those two on our pullback, it's going to be really good. Now the last thing we want to do is hit, we don't want to break below that. If we start breaking below that, it ain't gonna be so good, right? So let's continue moving forward here. So looking at the altcoins here, we had a nice, this was a good trading range. This was a good trading. We landed on a 9 here. We came up, right? We had a 9 sell perfectly. We came all the way down. We had a 9 buy. So that was a good a trade in here. So we're currently breaking back below, which tells me we're probably not finished with this correction here. And if Bitcoin, so for example, if you look at, let me put Bitcoin up too, you can see how they're diverting from each other. You can see right here's the top, and you can see Bitcoin's going up, VeChain altcoins are going down, right? So obviously there's divergence between the altcoins, for this example, VeChain. So eventually they're gonna, when this does pull back, right, we might continue a little bit lower. When we flatten out, we have a better chance of, catching back up here. So you can kind of see, let's see here, is this a wave 4? Could be, right? So we have 1, 2, could be another 1, 2, 3. This is a 4, and then we get 5. I mean, that would make sense, right? But I don't really want 5, right? I want 3. I don't want 5 down, because if I get 5 down, right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then I would get 3 up. Then that means I would get probably 5 back down, and it would just be a long correction, right? Some big flag out, right? So you have that big pump to the upside, and then you kind of just flag out for a long time and just drive everybody nuts, thinking, oh, the bear market's back, it's not doing anything. People get complacent, right? The bullish sentiment dries up, and then that's when you fly. So, that's typical. We can see, but yeah, when I look closely here, this looks pretty bearish. It looks like it needs to make another low, and that sucks too, because my entry was right here at 0.027. So yeah, so I might just break even on it. Might trigger my stop loss, but that's okay. I took a shot. Sometimes it doesn't work out. Here was the screenshot just yesterday. I mean, look how nice it was looking. We had a nice 9. We came back down. We had a green 2 above a green 1 here, and we were breaking above these red dots. But then obviously Bitcoin dumped, and it just kind of tanked, and now it's kind of hanging down here. So, it kind of looks like a 3-wave shape. So the other idea is that this is just an ABC, right? So instead of it being a 4th wave, you kind of have this impulse, right? And then you have an A, B, and now you're coming down for C. But it looks too strong. Like, you can see this is too impulsive, right? This is what I wanted to see, kind of this overlapping behavior. So we don't really see that. But A, B, C. If we come down here, we're really going to want it to hold up. I mean, it could be a flat here. It came up to about that 90%. So we could consider it as a flat. So it'd be a wave 1, wave 2, and then we continue higher. Now I'm using VeChain as an example for the altcoin market. Let's look at another coin here. Filecoin. Right off the bat, I see potential neckline there, and we have a shoulder, we have a head, maybe another shoulder here. So approximately $5.38, which it doesn't really matter what the price is, it's all about the percentage. So if I do it from that neckline, you're looking at about 15-16%, if that plays out. Now, if Bitcoin is in that correction, it's probably not going to play out. But again, it really comes down to, is this a wave 2, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, A, B, C, and now we have another 1. And when we look closely, you can see A, B, and maybe a C. We're coming down here. So 1, 2, let's get down here and see what happens. So that's the idea, right? The other idea is to say, and it's always tough, right? When you're in the middle of the Fibonacci retracement levels, right? So, you know, when you're at sort of at the top versus the bottom, you're literally you're in the golden pocket, right? You're in between the 50 and the 62, right? So between 50% and 62%. And, you know, so it can really go either way. So what we want to do is look for, you know, signs of what it's going to be. So essentially the other idea would be, you know, a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and this is A, this is B, and now we're getting C, and then go. So A, B, C, and go. But, you know, the C leg, I don't really like it a lot in here. You know, it just needs more time to mature to really see how it's going to be. But, you know, it is bullish, though. I mean, we are, you know, we had a kind of a big dump in here, but we are kind of flagging out. So if we get more overlapping, it'll look pretty decent, right? And then that's another thing. It can turn into a bigger B wave, like what Bitcoin did. So for example, if this kind of flags out and we hit the high, now we have 3. So it could be 3, 3, and then we get 3, and then we go. And that whole thing is a WXY. So what we would have is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, W, X, Y. So boom, boom, boom. It would be a flat, maybe a running flat or something. So something like that's the shape, right? So we didn't really correct down, right? Like a 1, 2. We corrected more in a range, oscillating. And that's even more bullish, right? And you can kind of see a shoulder, a head, and another shoulder here. So that's the setup you want. So if I had to guess, I would imagine maybe something along these lines here. Now, if we continue going down, that's probably better. Let's just get it over with. So let's move on. XRP is still just, what is it doing? I don't know. It's, well, I do have an idea, right? You know, it's pretty messy. Definitely looks corrective. The question is it revving up for a breakout, or is it sort of cooling down for a correction? That's the tough one. So again, this is wave 1. Is this an A, a B, and now it's some kind of running flat? I mean, that's possible, right? Is this a rise, crash, retrace, reaccumulation? Now we're going sideways before the breakout. That's possible too. And basically both of what I just said is essentially the same thing. Or is this some kind of complex A, B, C? Sort of a bigger flat here, maybe, right, before we go up. And if we go, we come down here and we reset. Let me put the 4-hour on. Put the divergence on here. And let's see here. So I'm looking for, okay, never mind. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. So I want to see either we get a big breakout with conviction, but if this comes up like this and it just kind of barely takes the high out with a top, then it's going to look like an A. This is going to look like a B, and then we come down and get C and then go. Right, so it'll be definitely a flat, right? So those are the kind of the ideas here. It's a little bit challenging because you're just in a very, very tight range, and a lot of times, people are expecting a lawsuit, the verdict, right? So people are definitely not going to sell until they get information, right? So I think that's why it's in a tight trading range, because people are just anticipating, waiting. And when you get too much anticipation and too much, it's going to, imminent, things, oftentimes it's never the case, right? It always, not always, but it's usually the opposite of what people think, or it takes longer, or like if everyone's expecting it in August, it's probably going to come in September. If everybody's expecting it in September, maybe it comes tomorrow, right? That's the whole thing, right? So, but yeah, another idea, my least favorite is that this is 1, 2, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 1, 2, 3. This is 4, and this is 5. It's a truncated 5. And now this is a W, this is an X wave, and then we're going to get a Y. But it would look a little small, so it could even do something like that, where this is the end of the 5th, and then we have W, X, Y, and then go. So that's another idea too. Let's move on. Monero. Monero looks interesting. Just looking at it, it kind of reminds me of COVID, where you had the dump, you had the hoop, you had the break, and then you had the back test, and then you had the side by side. So look at this. So when I look at XRP, that's the same thing would happen here, right? You had the dump, you had the hoop, you had the break, you had the back test, and now you're going side by side. You see what I mean? Isn't it crazy? And then look what happened after that. You had a big explosion to the upside, right? And you can say, well, yeah, you had a big dump later, but that dump, I don't count it because that was a news event, right? If you look at a lot of other coins, it didn't do that. So we could be getting a big breakout here. Actually, you know what? I'm going to screenshot that because I like that a lot. And I'm going to compare that kind of side by side. So, all right, so we got it side by side. We can kind of look a little bit closely here, right? You can see XRP, add that COVID dump, add that hoop, dump, hoop, right? Comes up, and then back test. It comes up, and then it back tests, and then it goes sideways, and then it goes sideways. And then what happens after that? It explodes to the upside. So is that what we're going to get? Maybe, right? I'm not saying definitively, right? There's no way to know for sure, but it looks pretty good here. We had this low, higher low, right? Everything checks out to what it is. And then especially how it kind of flags in here. It flags in here, and then it goes sideways, and then it goes sideways. So, we could get a breakout at any moment here. So let me do this. If I zoom in, you can kind of see how we kind of go up and then we go down. So it looks like we're going up, but now I want to see it come down, right? So it doesn't mean it's going to happen today, tomorrow, next week, but you know, just how XRP did, you know, it went up, kind of came down, went up. I want to see it come down, and then I want to see an impulse and a three-way pullback. If we get that, that would be a good shot to go long for a big push to the upside. And why am I caring about this? Because when we look at the other fractal, now this is the big fractal I'm going to show you right here. So when we compare Ethereum, no, this is not what I wanted. This is Ethereum Classic, but yeah, even this one too, right? I mean, you can see when we compare them with Dogecoin, right? You can pause the video and look at it, compare, contrast. Okay, so this is the one I wanted to show you. So, you know, you could see comparing it again with XRP, right? We had this initial pump, we came down here, we started making a bottom, right? I mean, I don't even need to draw it because the drawings are already there. So, you know, everything from this consolidation, I mean, just use your eyes. I mean, you can see it. You can see how similar the structure is. And this is not, you know, this is the big chart. This is essentially 1, 2, 3.5. This is 3.5 years. So it definitely is very significant. So I think, you know, this could be a big opportunity, a big bottom here. We had our little creek in here, our spring phase, right? And yeah, we pumped to the upside. So let's see what happens. And you know, the fractal I just shared a couple minutes ago, which is this one here. This is the smaller time frame. This could be, you know, kind of that moment here where we come down, right? We kind of reset it and then we go higher for Monero. Now, this doesn't mean it doesn't mean Monero, right? It just means if Monero does that, then that means the rest of the market's probably going to do something crazy as well. So we'll see. All right, let's move on to Theta. I thought this was a cool little graph here I saw on X from Crypto Reviewing. Give him a follow. He's got some pretty cool posts, but essentially that's his opinion. I mean, that's his review, his thoughts on it. You could pause the video and check it out. I will say the price potential, $7 to $35. I would actually bump that up to at least, well, let's see. Before I say it, let's just look at it. I want to get at least a 1618 target, target. So yeah, that comes in at $26. So yeah, that's pretty spot on. So the little graph said between $7 and $35. So $35 would be at basically the 2.272. So I would actually say, yeah, that's correct. The minimum target for me, I think, would be about that $26. Now, this is all predicated on us breaking above the all-time high. None of this is going to happen if we don't do that. But here's the cool part about it. You don't necessarily have to break the all-time to make a lot of money, right? Because most of the percentages, let me go back to log, most of the percentages are going to come between now and the all-time high. Once you break the all-time high, the percentages drastically decrease. So, for example, from where we are now to the all-time high is 1,000%. Okay? That's a lot. Now, if I were to take that same thing and go to the all-time high and go up 1,000%, I mean, you know, you're looking at $190. I mean, that's just way out of the question, right? At least for this cycle. So, you know, we're looking at what, $26? So if we hit that 1618, I mean, that's only 62% above the all-time high. You know, and when you look at Bitcoin, let's see what Bitcoin did. And I'm using Bitcoin because it's a big market cap, right? But essentially, here was our all-time high right there, about 20,000. And then what I'm going to do is take this percentage and go all the way up. And where did we hit? Approximately about 200 and say 30%. 230%. Okay, so let's go back to Theta. And let's go up about 230%. So let me put the line here, right about there. And let's go up 230%. That gives us about $50, and that makes sense. And I mean, that to me, that makes more sense, right? So from where we are now to say, I'll be conservative and I'll say $50. We'll say 50. So from where we are now up to the all-time high, that's about 1,000%, right? So if we go up to $50, now you're talking a lot, right? Now you're talking about at least 3,000%. So the first one would be about, about a 17x, 1,700%, 2,000%. And if we hit the full 4.236 extension around $68, I think the most we can get out of Theta would be this between 60 and 70. So that comes in around that 4,000% area, right? So, but yeah, most of the percentages are going to come between us getting to the all-time high, right? So, being at the all-time high and going up to about $60, that's only about 200. That's only an additional, 300%, 200%, right? So, yeah, just keep that in mind. So that's why, this big dump, or this big pump and this big dump, are very important, because we essentially, you take this whole wave here and it basically, you cut it in half, and that's exactly where we went to, is the halfway point. So now we have all of this to get back up to here, and that should be equal, right? And then what you can do is you just take another thing like this, right? And this is going to be too much. This is going to be way too much if I were to put it at the all-time high, right? So you're looking at $430, but that's kind of impossible, right? So what I'll do is essentially, let's see, what do I want? I want to put it from the top here of the base. So from the top of the base to the top of the high, and then I'll take this and I'll put it right about there, and that gives us about that $30 area, about that 1618, right? So that's kind of the target here, is a 2x above the all-time high. I think is doable. So, just to get to the all-time high, we have to 10x. And then once we break the all-time high, then we're only looking at a 2 to 3x. So that's what I'm trying to explain. But when you look at it on linear scale, I mean, doesn't it look like it's revving up? Doesn't it look like it's spent a good amount of time? I mean, you can see all this in here, right? And that's why we like sideways, right? So, if I just take a bars pattern real quick and I put it right here, about here, right? So, I mean, that would be pretty awesome if we can get something like that. So, I mean, it's pretty dramatic. But yeah, something like that. So I just flipped it to log scale. So, but yeah, so let's jump into Theta here. Nothing's changed. Let's go to the small time frame. Okay, so we're pulling back, and okay, yeah, this is what we were talking about yesterday. Basically, we were right in here, and I said this could be a B wave, and it actually looks very much like a B wave. So what we have is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then we have an A, and now this is a 3-wave B, and now it looks like we're going down for C. So we're going to get an A, B, C, and that hopefully should be the bottom before we rock and roll to the upside. Okay, so that's kind of what I'm thinking here for the price of Theta. Now, hopefully it's not too deep of a correction. You know, I would really like to see the 618 get tagged if we do go down in that C. So it'd be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and get down here to about $1.30, and that would make sense. A 618 retrace on a wave 2, and that would be, to me, sufficient enough to continue the price higher, right? And actually what I could do is I could put this right here, and yeah, so let me just do that. I'll take everything off, and I'll put the line right down here, and you can see we almost hit that line actually. So, you know, getting a double bottom. I mean, also let's get into the other ideas in a minute, but this could be kind of like a 1, 2, 1, 2. I don't think so. But if we come down and we reset down in here, and basically here's the low, we sweep the low, we hit this, now you have a shoulder, a head, and a shoulder, and you have a 3-wave shape on the halfway point of that shoulder. So when you sort of round out, now it looks like you got that that structure we all are looking for. So, because my target still is about $1.90, right? So, the first target, and then the second target would be about $2.30. Now, I'm not going to say 230 until we break about $1.65. Once we do that, I think we have a very clear shot at $1.90, because again, we have a pretty big gap here, right? We've talked about the gap in here. So you can see right there and right here, straight shot. As soon as you break into this, it's a straight shot up. As soon as you break below it, it's a straight shot down. So as soon as we break above this, I'm expecting a straight shot up, because it's like kind of like an air pocket in there, and then correct back down to fill in the gap, and then what you have is a 1, 2, 1, 2. That would be very bullish, right? So yeah, that's pretty much it for the price of Theta. And then also it would actually, if I draw this line here, break above this downward resistance line, because that's probably the biggest goal we have, is for Theta to break above this downward resistance line. So that comes in at about somewhere between, $1.70 and $1.60. So but yeah, it's looking good for a bottom. I mean, we have bullish divergence here on the daily between the 4th and the 5th. it looks like we have, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or better yet, A, B, C, right? And then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in C, and then we have a 5-wave impulse, and now we want to see that pullback, which we're getting now, and then a break, and then a back test, and then a blast off. So that's what I would like to see. That's what I'm anticipating. If things turn for the worse, I haven't really talked about a lot of bearish scenarios lately, but essentially if we break below $1.25, we're probably going to come back down and retest 90 cents up to about $1. So hopefully that doesn't happen, but you never know. So it really is going to depend on Bitcoin. So moving forward, Ethereum Classic still looking good here, right? We broke this channel, we back tested it, we got a 3-wave shape, we got a 5-wave off the low. I mean, things are looking like they're gearing up, as you would say. CRV, it's not what I wanted to see. I mean, you know, it still could be a wave 1, 2, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I don't even know. I would guess 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, A, B, C, and then we have a 1, 2. Now it's possible that we have something like this, right? Kind of a W, X, Y, X, Z, and then go. So if we do, I want to see divergence here. So let's see if we get that. Let me put this on. Yeah, so I don't know if we'll get it, but we'll see. So let me zoom in now. Yeah, it kind of looks like one of those roundabouts, right? Where it gives you the impression it's going to keep going down, but it kind of rounds out and then it kind of goes flat and then it breaks out. Kind of like that fractal we saw. Then it back tests, right? If I see something like this and then it back tests and then it kind of goes sideways and then go. I mean, I can see that. And that would actually be a 1, 2, 1, 2 if we got something like that. So I like that idea. So we'll revisit that. ADA. I mean, when we look at this chart, right? Wave 1. It looks like an A, B, C. Or we have an A, B, C, and this is a wave 1. This is 2. We have a 3-wave shape in here. So it looks like we got some more downside to go. Like I've been saying, we need a correction. XLM, not really interesting. Theta fuel. Yeah, it looks like it's a B wave. It looks like we need this. Algo, same thing. But Algo didn't break the high. Algo needed that 5th wave. It didn't get it. So it could be some kind of truncated 5th or something like that. So I think that's good enough for today. QNT. Yeah, I also saw an interesting diagram on QNT. So if you want to pause the video and read that, go ahead. I'm bullish on QNT. I think it's got a good future. All right, last but not least, TOTAL3. Let's look at the daily. Is this an ABC? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. ABC. Go. And then the whole thing is a finished wave with a 5-wave impulse with a 3-wave pullback. This is where I would go long right in here if I had the opportunity. If the opportunity presented itself. So when I zoom in, it looks a little bit messy in here, but yeah, everything looked the same. It's a B wave. You could see it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have a B. Looks like a 1. We're gonna get 3, 4, and 5. So look for this shape and see if we can get a bottom. Look for dojis, look for divergences, look for 5 waves, look for TD sequential 9 buys. That's what you look for, and that's where you go long, right? But if you don't get that, then you have to look at something else. So, all right, that'll do it for this video. Appreciate everybody for tuning in, and hit that like, hit that subscribe, and I will catch you guys on the next one. Cheers.